Hello, this is Pastor Mike in Southern Oregon. We're here to make another video. I'm the pastor of the Remnant Church here. These videos are done under the title of Investment in Truth. So I'm thinking about changing that name. I don't like the fact that I have so much trouble with the word investment, but for now that's what it's under. All right, today is January 31st, 2020. January's almost gone. Wow, I mean, 1/12 of the year is already gone of this new year. The subject today is going to be sovereign citizens. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'll explain. The number assigned to this will be 2020. It means the video was made in 2020. V for video -002. The last video I did was 001. That was the one on DUI checkpoints and police encounters. Now we're making another video. We hope to get better with this new software and some of the other things that the software can do as these videos go on, and hopefully we'll get adept at how to use the software. So far it's starting to work okay. The last video seemed to have come out all right. All right, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read the disclaimer as I always do, and we get that out of the way, we'll go on. One thing I will tell you that I don't have any notes this time, hardly any notes at all. I'm just doing this right off the cuff, and we'll see how that goes. I'm going to allow the cameraman to ask me questions. I'm not even sure where this conversation is going to go. We'll have to see where it goes. All right, I'll go ahead and read the disclaimer. The information provided herein is for educational, truth, and knowledge purposes only. No specific course of action is directed except the advancement of knowledge and truth. I now state and clearly declare that I'm addressing the subject matter set forth herein as a pastor of God in my religious and ecclesiastical capacity and office, and I am exercising my official function to keep religious believers informed of the various rights, freedoms, liberty under God, and relative to their awareness and understanding of the laws of man. Therefore, I hereby declare, claim, and assert any and all religious protections of whatsoever nature and kind, including protection from discrimination on the basis of religion, available under the inherent, inalienable, primary, and subordinate rights and laws. The Remnant Church in Southern Oregon, of which I am a pastor, my name is Michael, M-I-C-H-E-L without the A. I go by the name of Mike Benjamins Jr., in both his personal and ecclesiastical capacities, including his subordinates and personnel, individually and jointly, disclaim any and all liability and or responsibility for any damages sustained or suffered by the readers, viewers, or other entities in the implementation of any of the teachings set forth in this video. Okay, the material is provided as a research study project for learning purposes only, and any implementations and or applications contrary to my various cautionary statements, which I make from time to time. I will often say so when I say, look, I'm talking about it, that doesn't mean you should go out and do it, are undertaken at the sole risk and peril of the readers, viewers, or entities. No statement is made or implied as to the ultimate outcome resulting from such implementations or applications. Okay, that's the disclaimer. Now, sovereign citizens. Now, you may have heard of these people. If you type it into Google or get on the internet, type in sovereign citizens, and you'll probably see people talking about it. There are various lawyers who have talked about this subject. Apparently it's a fairly popular subject to talk about. And also you'll probably see some mocking of the sovereign citizens. You'll see people make fun of sovereign citizens. You'll see videos of the police interacting with sovereign citizens. You might even see a courtroom, what usually they don't let people just come in and film what goes on in a courtroom, but you might even see a courtroom video of a judge interacting with a sovereign citizen type person. I've even seen judges stoop to calling them idiots. I've even seen judges stoop to calling them other things and treating them extraordinarily poorly. Okay. In my day, this is a subject that I know quite a bit about. In my day, we didn't call them sovereign citizens. It was called back then in the 80s. This is in the mid 80s. They called it the Patriot Movement. Some people were calling them freemen. Some people called it the Freeman Movement. It goes by different names. Now they're calling them sovereign citizens, and evidently the sovereign citizens have made quite a name for themselves, mostly in the wrong direction. Okay, these are people basically who believe that things have gone wrong in this country, believe that the government is deviating from the original constitutional purpose on which it was founded. The whole set of beliefs that they believe in, but basically what motivates these people to think that they don't any longer want to be part of the system the way it is now. Okay, they're saying, look, the system is messed up, the system is going in the wrong direction, the country is going to go down the drain, a bunch of other things that people would say. Do you have anything other that you would think of that these people stand for, that are being said out there now, that some of them are tax protesters, some of them don't like the fees that have been put on everybody, the growing amount of fees for everything. You're basically your inherent and your inalienable rights, freedoms, and liberties are starting to slip away. They don't like that.
At least the tax protesters, some of them have got this attitude that any tax at all, some feel that any tax at all is theft.
Okay.
There should be no government and a tax of any kind is theft.
Mm-hmm. Well, Judge Napolitano kind of says the same thing, and he's not a sovereign citizen person. He's an ex-judge. And so, therefore, it's not just these people who feel this way about some of those issues.
No, that's a common libertarian attitude.
Yeah. The libertarians, of course, feel that the government is too big and the freedoms are dwindling in the shadow of big government and all that. Now, here's my background in this. I left police service around 1983. Okay, and I actually rubbed up against these what we're calling patriots then, or whatever they were being called, and that piqued my interest. And I actually started going to some of their meetings and things like that, and I wanted to hear what they had to say. Everybody said, "Wow, these guys," rumors were spreading around that these are crazy people. These are people. They're dangerous to society. Some of them carry guns. Different things were being said about them, but nothing good. Nothing good. These are people that won't conform to society. All of those types of things. And so I, after having been a police officer, decided that I would look into it and find out what was going on. Now, you may ask yourself, what in the heck why would an ex-police officer such as myself want to do that? Why would he want to rub shoulders with some of these freemen types? Well, I'll tell you a little story. I was in the military police, and kind of the way I got into this thing, I came from a time when there was lots of police shows on TV, and it had a big impact on me. I saw these police shows on TV, and I thought, I had already worked doing different things. I had dug ditches and done a lot of hard labor kind of work. And I was out there digging a ditch one day. We were digging by hand with a shovel, not a backhoe. With shovels, we were digging this trench for a foundation for an A-frame. The A-frame still stands some miles from here. And I was out there, and we were working really hard. And, you know, I thought, God, there's just got to be a better way to make a living than this, you know, digging this ditch. And then a police officer went by eating a hot dog. I'm sitting there leaning on my shovel, and I'm going, I want to do that. So I'd like to do that. I said, I want to go down the road eating a hot dog, you know, instead of digging this ditch. So I got into the military police, and you wouldn't, you know, maybe you wouldn't think it now, but I was pretty gung-ho when I was in the military police. I was so gung-ho. The way it used to be when we were in the military police, of course, I went through the military police training and the police academy that the military had. And when we did our shifts, the way we did them back then was 12 on, 12 off. No, that I don't know how long is a shift for regular cops now?
Most of the time now it's 12 on, 12 off.
It's 12 on, 12 off now,
yeah.
Huh? Okay. Well, we were doing 12 on, 12 off. And the way it would work is you would do 3 days, 12 on, 12 off of day shift. Then there was a 24-hour gap. Then we would do 3 days of 12 on, 12 off swing shift. Then there would be another 24-hour gap. And then we would do 12 on, 12 off, 3 days of graveyard shift. And if you do that for a while, believe me, that's grueling. That's very grueling to do that. Now, I was gung-ho enough that I would do one of these 12-hour shifts. And our first sergeant said, who would like to fly helicopters and volunteer to fly helicopters? And I looked around, and there was nobody raised...
In helicopters?
In helicopters, yeah, of course, as a police officer. Yeah. And I looked around, and I didn't see anybody raising their hand, and there went my hand up, and I said, what was I thinking? But I raised my hand up. So I was gung-ho enough that I did a 12-hour shift, then did another 6 hours flying in a helicopter. Now, the way that was, see, what we had there on the military post where I was, by the way, on a military post, it isn't the search and seizure rules that you have as a civilian police officer. If you enter the post, there's a big sign that says, all vehicles entering this military reservation are subject to search. And that's the way the rules were there. I had to kind of relearn the rules when I became a civilian police officer, because it kind of got spoiled. You know, we searched what we wanted, more or less, on a military post. But anyway, the thing is, what was going on was these officers that were company commanders, normally they were like up on the hill, they were company commanders for infantry units, but these guys were also pilots. And in order to keep up their pilot certification, they had to do a certain amount of flying. So they didn't really care where they flew to, they just had to get so many hours of flying in. So they made a deal with the MPs and says, well, the military police says, well, we'd like to get in on that since you have to fly anyway. Maybe you can fly for us. So we ended up, an MP would be put on a helicopter, one of these Huey helicopters, and I don't know if you've ever been a Huey before, but they've got turbine engines on them, and it isn't like you see in the movies where you can just talk to each other, you know, without gear. Those engines are loud, and so you have to have the headgear on, and you have to have radio equipment in there with a microphone and everything. Otherwise, you can't hear a thing. That helicopter makes one heck of a lot of noise. So what happened here was that they had a sergeant flying around in those helicopters, and I wasn't a sergeant at the time. In fact, when I first started that, I was a private. But anyway, the point is the sergeant that was flying around in a helicopter, he started throwing up in the helicopter because the helicopter would bank this away and bank that away, and he got sick, and he says, I'm not flying in that helicopter anymore. You know, so that opened it up for somebody else to take it, and I was dumb enough to raise my hand, so I got in the helicopter, and it was a funny situation because these officers, these were like captains, and one was a major, and you know, they would ask me where I wanted them to go. So I'm telling officers now where to fly the helicopter because we were, and I was in radio contact with the MPs running around down below, and we could see him. So I said, okay, sir. I says, I want you to fly. See, I says, you see that police car with his lights on going after that other car? He says, fly over that, fly with them. You just fly behind them, and you know, if you want to, you can run the helicopter skids up his tailpipe. I don't care, but just go after him. So that's what I was doing. And we had lights on the. In fact, those helicopters were set up kind of nice. There was a regular light on one side of the helicopter and an infrared light on the other side. So you could see in infrared on one side and regular light on the other. And I was doing that kind of stuff, and we were banking around. And you know, when you go after cars and stuff, the helicopter doesn't always fly nice and straight. That's what I was doing there. That's what I was doing. Okay, so then I got into the regular police department after that, after I went to college, and learned a bunch of other things about how that worked. And you get regimented into a certain way of thinking. You fall back on your training. You fall back on a certain way of thinking. And this is very different from what these sovereign citizen people, how they think. So you get regimented, and it's well known, you know, that if you're trained that way, in a tight situation, you will fall back on your training when there's no time to really think. You just fall back on your training. You run into a situation where cops get the mindset that it's an us and them dichotomy. It's us cops against the world, and the world has to be kept functioning by us, and bad guys have to be gotten after. You get that kind of mindset. And that's the kind of mindset I had been in for quite some time. And what happened to me, which caused me to go to these meetings, because you might ask yourself, that's where I started a little bit ago, you might ask yourself, why would a guy like that want to go to these sovereign, patriot, free man type meetings? Well, I'll tell you why. Because after all that time and all the training that I had, and I was silly enough that when I was a cop, I would volunteer for any kind of extra training that came up. I was just one of those kind of guys. They said, we've got extra training happening over here. Well, I wouldn't did it. I went and got more training. After all that, when I was fairly certain that I was one of the guys, I was one of the cops, that they would never turn on me. These were my brothers in arms. Well, when I left the police department in 1983, my dad and some of my family members wanted to start a business, and I said, okay, I'll quit the police and be in that business with you. And I did, and it went okay. I was one of the people in charge of the business. And I had, because I was so used to carrying a gun, see, now, you know, once you're not in the police department anymore, you want to carry a concealed weapon, you have to get a permit to do that, a license, a handgun license. And I had one because I had carried a gun for so long. In fact, I had started carrying a gun when I was like 19 years old, and I just kept on carrying one. So just because you're not a cop anymore doesn't mean you're not going to carry a gun. I did. Well, the problem is that those licenses have a time span in which they are good. I wasn't paying attention to that. I never had to pay attention to it before when I was in the police department, so I wasn't paying attention to it. Well, the license ran out, which means that it expired. Now, I was a little bit expired. I was like 6 or 7 days expired. The police arrested me for it, instead of just citing me for it or doing whatever. Took the gun I was wearing away, threatened to destroy it, and put me in jail. All that stuff that I had done for them, all that idea that these were my brothers in arms that would never turn on me, well, boy, was I wrong. I was wrong. They turned on me in a heartbeat. That, my friends, was the biggest mistake that they ever made. because it changed my life. It changed my perspective. It changed the way I look at things. It opened doors that I walked through, which I never would have walked through had that not happened. At the time, I was not a happy camper. I guess you can maybe understand that. I wanted to go through this explanation for you, not for nothing, not because I just like to run off at the mouth. No. I want you to understand how a guy with my background, who had done the things that I had done, could end up at what they now call a sovereign citizen meeting. And they were also called, by the way, constitutionalists. They were also called that. I especially wear my little constitutional booklet in my pocket here. Okay, they were also called that. And by God, they did study the Constitution. I had studied the Constitution before I was in that, but they were studying it. We were going through it all the time when I went to the meetings. I got a different idea of what these people are. And so, like I said, you go to meetings like that and you go, what's going on around here? Why are these people upset? I want to hear them out. I want to hear them out. I did. And they said, well, here's the reason we believe this. Here's the reason we believe that. All kinds of subjects that I probably will not go through tonight because it's too detailed. There's too many things that they go to. I'll touch on some of it. The thing is, what I want to tell you is that most of these people are not what you think they are. They're not idiots. They're not crazy. They're not, to a man, none of them were dangerous that I knew. Now, there were some dangerous ones, don't make no mistake. But those dangerous people would be in any group. If the group lasts long enough, some weird and crazy people try to get into the group. There are some fringe people in the police force. There are some fringe people in lots of different areas of life. But mostly these were good people. These were people who were concerned that the nation was going the wrong way and things were breaking down and we've got to try and save the nation. Not a one of them that I went to a meeting said, I'd like to shoot a cop, or I'd like to do something bad to a cop. I'd like to, that's not the kind of people they are. Now, I want to tell you something about this sovereign citizen movement and the way people are dealing with them now. There is no respect. You remember Rodney Dangerfield? No respect. I get no respect. They get no respect. I got news for you. Police officers are trained on how to deal with the public. And so, they have some training. If you're a police officer, you can get on the phone and say, I got a legal question. Let me call the DA's office or some legal source, and I'll find out the answer to this legal question. They just pick up the phone and do that. These sovereign citizen people, they don't have any of that. They do have some training. Some of it's good, some of it's not good. I can tell you that to do what some of those people do, drive without a driver's license, for instance, and have to interact the way they interact with the government, takes courage, and it takes bravery, and it takes dedication. And to mock them and behave as if they're, just about insane people, and to think that they should be treated the way that I see people treating them. I say this, you're out of line if you're thinking that way. You're out of line if you're behaving that way. And I'm very, very disappointed in some of the people acting the way they're acting. Some of these people are educated people. Some of these people are prominent people. And this is beneath a gentleman's behavior. This is beneath it. There's no cause for that. You may have to, when you're in war, you may have to kill your enemy, but that doesn't mean you can treat him like, a piece of fecal matter. or think that, when he comes at you with a gun and you're coming after him with a gun, both sides are having to exhibit bravery. Both sides have to overcome their fear and show some courage to risk their lives to do that. Therefore, there should be respect even among adversaries. And I think we've all forgotten that. I think that something has been lost. Now I'm a pastor. I believe that there should be a love component in there somewhere, and that's what God teaches. Now, if you don't believe in God, I think you should still believe in respect. I think you still believe in some of these things. And I hope that if there are some police officers watching this, or some lawyers watching this, or some judges that ever see this, that they listen to the words that I now speak. Because where do you get off mocking these people who are in a very hard situation? Now, you may argue that they're wrong about the law. You may argue that they're wrong about their stand on the issues. But that's not the point of all this. They deserve some respect. They're risking a lot to go ahead and follow their beliefs. They're risking a lot. And they're not out there saying they want to destroy society. Far from it. They're out there thinking that they're saving society, a lot like cops think that whatever they do is going to save society. It takes bravery. It takes dedication. Okay, now, let's talk about the advancement of the issues. Now I want to talk to the other side. I want to talk to these people that are calling themselves sovereign citizens right now, if any of those ever watch this. All right? I know where you're coming from. I know what your stand is on driver's licenses and the different things you believe in and constitutional rights, and the fact that you don't want to be a federal citizen because you believe that is surrendering some of your rights that you have, that we should all have, inherent and inalienable rights. I understand, okay? I understand why you're doing it, but I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm going to have to dress you guys down a little bit too. And a lot of it's not your fault. But this I can tell you, since the 80s, when I saw what the people were doing back then, who were then called freemen and patriots or whatever, constitutionalists, there has been almost no advancement since the mid-80s until now. When I watch videos of these sovereign citizens talking to the police and stuff, as a matter of fact, and my son pointed that out, he says, look, I think they went backwards a little bit, you see. Did they not advance on the issues and how to deal with the issues? Now, I'm going to say that it's partly the responsibility of the leaders of that sovereign citizen movement to send people out largely unprepared on the issues, you see. I don't think that's a wise policy. Now, I would like to tell you, and I have no hesitation at all about saying that all the things that these free men and constitutionalists and sovereign citizens believe in, that it's all hogwash and gobbledygook. It is not all hogwash and gobbledygook. That I can tell you. I have spent years looking into issues just like they believe in. And yes, they don't know how to handle the legal issues. That's true. Most of the videos that I saw, the sovereign citizens conducted themselves fairly well and were polite to the police, were non-threatening, and the only thing the police could talk about is what kind of felony they could charge them with. Now, sometimes the police treated these people fairly correctly. Firm, professional, and businesslike. Not all the time. Sometimes the police treat these people fairly badly. Here's where I'd like to go. Would you have any comment on what I've said so far? No? Okay. Here's what I'd like to talk about. I want to talk to you sovereign citizens about this thing about driving a motor vehicle without a driver's license. Okay, I don't know what you did with your driver's license. Maybe you just gave it back to DMV. Maybe you waited till it was expired. Maybe you sent papers to DMV in the state saying that you repudiate having to have a driver's license. Here's your driver's license back. Okay, I understand that you can do that. You will have to pay the consequences if you don't know how to negotiate your way through the issues. That I can tell you. Here's what I recommend. I think that America and the United States is in trouble. It's in trouble in many different ways, some of which not unsimilar from the complaints and grievances that you people have. However, there's the right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things. I do not think that driver's license issue is the most important issue that you should be addressing. Not the least of which is that if you take the license plates off of your vehicle and drive without a license, you're asking for trouble. And you're going to get it. Because as soon as they don't see a license plate on your vehicle, well, they're right there behind you. And they're going to do what police do. And then they're going to try to charge you with a felony if they can. They're going to impound your vehicle. They're going to, one thing that I figure these sovereign citizens are now doing is that they are removing the VIN numbers from the vehicle. The VIN numbers are usually up there by the windshield. There's a little tag there that has the VIN number on it. Then you open the door and there'll be a VIN number tag on the door. Okay, some of you are removing those tags off the vehicle. That's against the law, folks. It's going to cause you some problems. Now, should it be against the law? That's a whole other subject. I'm not going to go there right now. I have my own feelings about that, especially if it's your own private property and it's not still owned partially by the bank. Let's say it's all your car. Should it have to have a VIN number, and should it be a serious criminal offense if you remove the VIN numbers? Like I said, we could get into that, but we're not going to do it. Okay. Then there are some other problems. You don't have a driver's license, but from what I've seen on video, you sovereign citizens, when you're stopped by the police, are not identifying yourself. The police officer will ask, "What is your name? And do you have a driver's license?" And of course, you don't have one. Okay, well, from what I've seen, the person will give them a name like Demetrius or whatever, just one name, not two names, only one name. They'll give them one name, and more likely than not, it's not their real name. It's not even their real name, it's a fake name. I do not recommend that you do that. I do not recommend that you do that. As a matter of fact, here's what I would recommend. I would recommend that you say, okay, yes, I may have foundation for doing what I'm doing by some complicated or intricate explanation of law. From what I've seen, the people that are doing those things do not have a very good spiel to back up why they're doing it. They're being sent out with insufficient explanation of why they do that. Why they're out there with no license plates, no driver's license, and all that. All right. What you need to do is, if a police officer asks you to roll down your window, you roll the window down. If a police officer asks you to step out of the car, you step out of the car. Okay, if the police officer asks you to identify yourself, as I don't know if you know this or not, but if you don't identify yourself, that too is another offense. You don't want to be lying to the police and say your name is Demetrius when your name is actually John Doe. You see, that could very well come back to bite you. You don't want to be doing that. Apparently nobody has trained you people on this. Nobody's training you people on this. You're making all the classic mistakes. Now, let's see. I don't have that book here with me right now. Maybe I can get my cameraman to go get it. James Duane's book. Get that book. He's running to get a book called The Right to Remain Innocent, written by law professor James Duane. Now, you people who are in this sovereign citizen movement need to buy this book. You Have the Right to Remain Innocent by law professor James Duane. He's from Regents College, okay? Right on the back of it, it says, don't talk to the police. Now, that doesn't mean don't talk to the police at all. If he asked you what your name is, you can give him your name. If you have a license, then you can give him your license. You got one. If you don't have a driver's license, here's what I recommend that you do. See, what you have to do when you're dealing with police, you have to try to make them feel comfortable. You have to let them believe they're in control, because that's better for you and them. And they're used to being handed some kind of a card with your picture and name on it. Now, if you don't want to carry a driver's license, then you need to see, this is a card that I have. It makes very little difference what's written on the card. The card has a date on it. The card has a signature on it. The card has my picture on it. And a card has, it's basically an identification card, you see. You need to have something like that you can hand to the police, rather than saying, I'm not going to tell you who I am. I told you my name was Demetrius. Well, that's just not good enough. That's just not good enough. They're used to being handed a card of some type. And you say, oh, you want to know who I am? Here's my card. Here's my picture ID. Now, we all know what's going to happen, right? We all know. They're going to say, that's not government issued. You made that yourself, or somebody did. That's true. They will say that. But at least you have taken care of the problem of identifying yourself with picture ID. And that's going to help you later down the road if this thing goes to court or whatever. Now, in one particular case I was watching, they took the person's car, they told him to step out of the car, they handcuffed him. He was making legal explanations which the police were absolutely not looking at or listening to at all. As a matter of fact, while he was rattling on about free men and Constitution and sovereignty and all that, they were calling more cops, and pretty soon there were like 4 or 5 police cars all around this guy. They also asked for there was a passenger in the car. They also asked for that person to identify himself. It was 2 men in this case. And the other guy said, I wasn't driving. I'm not going to identify myself. And at first they said they wouldn't even get out of the car. Well, that's what I mean when you guys aren't being properly prepared to deal with the police. You need to be prepared to deal with the police. You need to know more about the law. And for God's sake, buy this book and read it. I mean, don't just read the cover. And you can say, you have the right to remain innocent, James Duane, and don't talk to the police. That's not enough. There's some stuff in between the covers. You have to read it. Read it. Do some studies. Look into the law. If you really want to advance a little bit in this knowledge, get on my Facebook sites and start looking at what I write there.
At least one of your Facebook sites.
I've got one Facebook group called Pastor Mike's Advanced Studies in Truth Group. Okay, you can look at that. I've got another site that's called Investment in Truth Review Facebook page. I just did a video on DUI. It's titled DUI Checkpoints and Police Encounters. Look at that video. It's 2 hours long. I explain a lot in there. You need to get some training. You need to get some legal knowledge. You need to find out how you negotiate. You need to find out And if the way you're going, they took this guy away, handcuffed, put him in the police car, and the police were talking, and they're going to charge him with a felony, and he's going to jail. And they could care less about his constitutional arguments. They could care less. So,
you mentioned too,
yeah.
You're not being compensated to endorse that book.
Oh, yeah. My son points out, when I've been telling everybody to buy this book, I do not get 1 penny for telling people to buy the book. Okay? So if you think I'm getting something out of this, no, I'm not. All right, now, so therefore I'll tell you this. Get yourself some kind of a picture ID with your signature on it, with your date of issue on it. Preferably, you want an expiration date. This particular ID card, now, by the way, I do have a driver's license. I'm just showing you this card for other reasons. But have some kind of a card. Now, over here, I've got a picture ID that comes from the VA. You know, any kind of picture ID with your name on it. Now, this one says Department of Veterans Affairs, has my name on it, has my picture on it, has the American flag on it. Okay, I didn't make this one. This comes from the VA. You see, have something that you can hand them. Have something that becomes valuable. It's a lot better than saying I'm Demetrius, which we'll find out later that wasn't your name.
So you're saying they should identify themselves, honestly?
I am saying you should identify yourself. Yes, I am.
Honestly,
yes.
not no.
Honestly,
no.
Don't lie to the police. That is yet another offense. Don't lie to the police. Okay, now, I would advise you, I reiterate, I advise you to stop driving with vehicles without license plates on them. I advise you to get a driver's license, and that may go totally against what you believe. You say, I don't want to get a driver's license, Pastor Mike. I have all these reasons why I don't want one. I got news for you. This country is in trouble. By the way, there is a law. I believe it's called the Identification Act or something like that. I'm doing this from memory. It was in 2005, and in October of this year, if you do not have an updated driver's license, they will not let you fly domestically. And the new driver's license will have either a star up here on the right-hand corner or an American flag, which means that they're now national. What the federal government was worried about was that the states were not using intensive enough practices to absolutely identify people. And so they're trying to come up with a sort of a national driver's license. It's not a national driver's license per se, but it's a driver's license that meets national standards for identification. And without that, they won't let you fly domestically anymore, starting in October of 2020. So there are people there that have regular driver's license. Even that's not good enough. They will have to go to DMV or some other government office, and they will have to have an updated driver's license, which now conforms to that standard. I don't know if people knew that, but that's the case. Now, I would say do not make a target out of yourself. This driver's license issue and this license plate issue, while some of it may be argued to be valid, I do not recommend that you do that. What you need to do is get yourself in a position where the heat's off, where you can still function in society, go from place to place without police getting behind you and charging you with a felony every time you do it. That's what you need to do. Now, some of you, I have to praise some of you sovereign citizens for your behavior, the way you interact with the police. It's commendable. That you do not get mad, you do not like some people will start yelling and screaming and doing all kinds of stuff like that. You guys don't do that. You're just trying to be firm on your issues. However, you're not. I'm telling you right now, the way you're going about it now, if you don't get more training under your belt, if you don't get more legal knowledge under your belt, if you don't get more police-citizen encounter knowledge under your belt, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Now, you may have thrashed through the Constitution of the United States with one of these little booklets. I got a whole stack of these, by the way. I know the Constitution fairly well. So the thing that I want you to realize is, if we're going to save this country, if we're going to protect our inherent and inalienable rights, liberty, and freedom, that's a whole lot bigger than just the driver's license issue. Now, while I do not say, and you can't get me to say, that some of these people who say that's all frivolous, everything they say, I've heard lawyers saying this, that's all frivolous. That's ridiculous that you don't have to have a driver's license. That's ridiculous that you don't have to have license plates on your car. I will tell you without hesitation, some of that is absolutely not ridiculous. But I'm not going to go into it now. I will tell you this, for anybody who's watching, including the police, including sovereign citizens, including lawyers, including all these people, you know what's ridiculous? You want to know what's ridiculous? To have to pay over $100 every 2 years to put little stickers on your license plate. Now, I can understand if they charge you $150 or $125 when you first put the license plate on and you first register the vehicle, that one-time thing. You see, you say, okay, that first time they had to give you a license plate, so you had to get the stickers and you had this and that and other thing. All right, if they're going to charge you that for the first time, great. What is the reason for renewing the license, the registration every 2 years for the cost of over $100? Is there some logical reason why the substance of the people should be drained based on that, other than to line the pockets of the government? And they're going to say, well, we need it for our operating budget. Oh, so you're going to sponge off the people who already don't have enough money, and you're going to keep charging them this extra tax. That's what it is. It's an extra revenue-raising tax. You know how much it should cost to renew a registration? Because they're little bitty tags that they put on. Okay, how high would you go reasonably? 15, 20 bucks?
Yeah, 20 bucks.
20 bucks. 20 bucks. If they said, okay, to renew it every 2 years, 20 bucks. You know, it's kind of like when you walk into a place that you often walk into, and they say every time, well, we got to fingerprint you to find out who you are. Well, didn't you fingerprint me the first time? You mean every time you have to re-fingerprint me because you forgot who I was? And now you're going to verify who I am all over again? See, that's maybe that's not the greatest of examples, but it's something like that. We have to re-verify. We have to re-register this thing, and we're going to charge you this much money to do it. Now, if you honestly believe that it's reasonable to charge you $100 or more every 2 years to re-register your vehicle because they put a little bitty tag on there and they typed in the renewal. You know, they had to do a little bit of work. That's why we're going overboard and saying, okay, 20 bucks, you see. I'm not saying they should do it for nothing, 20 bucks. But what's going on there is ridiculous, people. It's ridiculous. And everybody says, just play along with what the government, if whatever the government says the law is, just go along with it. Whatever the courts say the law means, just go along with it. You say, yeah, but I read the law and it doesn't say that. Oh, well, just have to live with it, you know. The Second Amendment says that your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. How come they're infringing it? Well, you don't have a law degree. You don't know what shall not be infringed means. I don't. Shall not be infringed. Hey, that means don't infringe my right to keep and bear arms so I can protect myself. Don't tell me that when everybody's running around with high-capacity magazines, that to protect myself, I should only have 5 or 10 rounds. Don't tell me that, because that's not adequate. You see, that's infringement. You're infringing on my rights. Now, some of you attorneys are apparently under the mistaken impression that the government is all-powerful and we have to do whatever the government says, and we have to listen to however the government defines something. Like if they define a terrorist as somebody who does some ridiculous thing that's not even terrorism, they say, well, that fits the legal definition of terrorism. Oh, somewhere in the 10,000 pages of the Patriot Act that started out at 2,500 pages, it may say something like that. They redefined the darn thing, you see. You know, this has got to stop somewhere. It's got to stop somewhere. This is out of hand. And you would say, man, he doesn't talk like a police officer. You know what I talk like? I talk like a American inhabitant who wants America to stay America, who wants freedom to stay freedom, who wants liberty to stay liberty, who believes, as the Declaration of Independence says, that the people created the government and that they govern by the consent of the people. Not that the government are the overlords of the people. That's not how it works. At least that's not how it's supposed to work. Yeah, go ahead.
Your position, without further explanation, seems somewhat contradictory. On one hand, you're telling them to get a driver's license and to get license plates and registration and toe the line.
Right.
On the other hand, you're saying there's legitimacy to their position and the government is acting inappropriate and overreaching.
Correct.
Perhaps you could explain that a bit?
I will explain that. Okay. What is happening right now? Now, maybe you haven't noticed, but if you're thinking out there in camera land that the government is always going to follow the law, you are quite incorrect. So you could be right on the law and you could still have a problem, a real serious problem. Now, in the video on the checkpoints, the DUI checkpoints, where the Supreme Court ruled that these checkpoints do not violate the Fourth Amendment, I absolutely disagree with them. The Supreme Court, Justice Scalia said that the Supreme Court is rewriting the Constitution. That's not me saying that. That was the late Justice Scalia said that. They're rewriting the Constitution. The fact is, if you're counting on them to follow the law, you think that because you are right on the law, that you will somehow prevail in your encounters with the police. That's not true. That's not going to work. So you will say, okay, well, how do I negotiate all this then, Pastor Mike? I believe that I shouldn't have to have a driver's license. I believe that I shouldn't have to have license plates. Well, do you want to be charged with a felony every time you drive out on the road? Or if you say, okay, but I'm not driving, I'm traveling. Okay, you're traveling. Do you want to be charged with a felony and put in jail every time you travel on the road in a motor vehicle? Here's what you should do. Here's what you should do. The reason I tell you go back and get a driver's license and put license plates on your car, that's so that you can go unhindered by the authorities when you have to go out there and do whatever you have to do. Here's what you need to learn, okay? What you need to do is you have to realize that you are getting this driver's license under duress. You're not getting it because you want to get it. You're getting it because if you don't, they're going to do mean, terrible, and awful things to you. Not to mention to haul your car away to an impound lot. They're going to do that. What you need to learn here is this. This is a Latin term. It's coactus facie. I'll spell it for you. Coactus is C-O-A-C-T-U-S, coactus. Facie is F-E-C-I. What it means is, coactus means under coercion, having been forced. Feci means that you do, make, or handle. So what you're saying is, this is your out. When you have to go back and get your driver's license, write C.F. That's a short for coactus feci. Okay? It means I'm doing this under arrest. If I don't do this, under duress. I said under arrest?
Yeah.
I jumped the gun. I thought I had you going for a felony again. Anyway, sorry about that. But anyway, write CF. Almost nobody, well, there are people who do know what it means. Almost nobody knows what that means. So you sign it, whatever, your application for a driver's license, you write CF after your signature. It means coactus feci means I am doing this under duress, because they won't listen to me. Every time I drive, they take my car, arrest me, handcuff me, and charge me with a felony of some kind if they can. Every time there's a criminal offense involved. So you're doing this under arrest. You're not, under duress. You're not doing this because you're volunteering to do it. You're doing this because you really have no choice. Now, I was involved in a situation where somebody had done this with the CF thing, and he brought it up to the court. And he was talking to the judge, and he said, Your Honor, if you'll notice there on that piece of paper by my signature, there's a CF after my signature, C.F. And then he began to explain what that meant, coactus feci. And the judge stopped him and says, I know what it means. And they went on from there. So you want to cover yourself. We got some things to figure out. Now, I'm not going to talk about it here and now. We're not going to talk about it here and now. I'm concerned about things too. I think there's way too much government. I don't think that there's just big government. I think there's way too much government. There are so many laws out there that even lawyers can't keep track of all the laws, let alone regular people. You're probably violating 2 or 3 laws every day if you're trying to act absolutely perfectly. There's so many laws. You don't even know that you're violating the law because you don't know all the laws. You see? Some prosecutor out there will zero in on one of those laws and say, well, I'm going to make a name for myself, because apparently with some prosecutors, a conviction rate is a fairly big thing. And I don't think, here's what I believe. I believe that the thing foremost in a lawyer's mind should not be a conviction rate, or for a defense attorney, an acquittal rate. I think the most important thing in their mind should be justice. I know it's a strange concept. But there are attorneys out there who will use these obscure laws that almost nobody knows and charge people with them. And everybody, other people say, boy, that's a great attorney. Look what he did. He put that guy away, with that funny law nobody even knew anything about. And there they go.
Or was intended for an entirely different purpose.
Was intended for a completely different purpose.
Written too broadly, maybe.
Yes. Like civil asset forfeiture. See, if you make a law that was really intended for organized crime and for drug dealers, and then everybody sits back and say, yeah, look, they're using that law against these bad people. And then they turn around and start using that same law against good people and start taking money from them. Basically just stealing the money from people. And it's hard sometimes for the people to get the money back. and it takes a long time, or it costs them as much as the money that was taken to win the case to get the money back. So therefore, some people don't even try to get their money back. They just lose the money. You see, that's what's happening out there. There's a lot bigger things happening than believe me. It doesn't do anybody any good if every time you drive out on the highway or travel on the highway, for you to get taken away in handcuffs and charged with a felony or a high misdemeanor, and pretty soon you never see your vehicle again. Because if you keep repeating, then you're a habitual offender if you keep doing it, you see. That's what happens. Is it in anybody's best interest? Is it in the interest of freedom for you to be in that situation if you're really a freedom fighter? It's kind of like when you're in a war. What if a soldier is in the brig? How much extra help is he giving to the war effort? Because he's in the brig. You see, well, now let me make things very clear. I am not telling you what to do. You can do what you want. You can deal with the police the way you want. If you want to do these things that you do, and apparently some of the leaders of the sovereign citizen movement are telling people to do these things, and I hold them in higher accountability for not thinking through how to go about this freedom fight. You see, how do we keep our freedoms from slipping away? Well, you don't do it by beating your head bloody on the adversary's fist. That's not how you do it. If you're really going to be a freedom fighter and you want to save freedom, the way it should be, you want the Constitution to be the foundation of our freedom, well, we're going to have to work to do that the right way. We're going to have to make it work the correct way. And that other way isn't the correct way. So, like I said, you can do what you want. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm saying what I have to say. I'll tell you something. I left the Patriot movement. I was going to the meetings and stuff, and I was getting to know the people in there, but I left for other reasons. First of all, I didn't agree with them on all the legal issues. I didn't agree with them on a lot of things. And when I tried to correct them, they would not take correction. And there was a nasty undercurrent of anti-Semitism in the Patriot movement in the 80s. And I couldn't be part of that either. So there are reasons why I had to go. I don't agree with those people. I'll tell you something, and maybe this is unfair to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. If this government that we have now, which has its flaws, they're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. It has its flaws. It has its shortcomings. Were to say one day to these sovereign citizen people, okay, yeah, you're right. We're rotten. We're corrupt. We've screwed the whole thing up. We're going to walk out. You guys come in and see what you can do. The way those people were acting when I tried to correct them, I don't know that the government they would create would be any better than the one we have now. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree. I have little to no confidence that they could do better.
That they could do better. Is there anything that I've said so far that you want to add to or ask me any questions?
Just qualify that none of what you're saying is construed to be legal advice in any capacity.
That's correct. Nothing that I'm saying here is to be construed as legal advice. I'm basically giving you my opinion on issues. Okay. These are my beliefs. These are my opinions. This is my assessment of the situation that I see before me. If I were you, this is what I would do. You see, I'm not you, but if I were you, this is what I would do. I would not say continue to go out on the road without a license plate and without a driver's license, be charged with a criminal offense and taken away in handcuffs every time I try to move from one place to the other. That's helping nobody. That's helping nobody. We got big things before us. If we're going to try and keep things from becoming any worse than they already are, which I don't know if that's even going to work, because the way things are right now, the government is becoming more and more and more dysfunctional. And if you don't want to believe me, just, turn on the news or listen to Ben Shapiro or just listen to the people who are talking about the issues, and you'll know that it's so polarized up there in Washington that the Republicans and the Democrats can hardly even talk to each other anymore. You see, it's all starting to fall apart, and freedom is starting to slip away. And if some of the people, I won't say who they are, if some of the people get what they want, freedom will be gone from the USA. And I don't know what will replace it. There's people running around saying things like this: the Constitution is horse and buggy law. The Constitution is outdated. It doesn't address the needs of the people today. And they say we've got to usher it on out, along with the Second Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and whatever else they want to usher out. And they say we got to replace it with something else. And then they're not talking about what they're going to replace it with. Before I say to a person, yeah, take my car away. He says, I'll bring you another car. I said, okay, just take my car away. He says, well, what other car? Well, I'm not going to tell you that. It may be a junker with no engine and no wheels and no frame under it, just a body of a car. You see? Well, I'd like to know before you take my car away what's going to replace it. Because a rusty body of a car with no wheels and no engine and no nothing isn't going to get me very far. Don't let them tell you that the Constitution is outdated. It is not outdated. There are things, the Bill of Rights, for example, you let that go, you're probably never going to see anything like it again.
We see other terms that are quite absurd and ludicrous, like free speech is hate speech.
Yes.
And we've matured past the idea of liberty and freedom.
Right. Okay, if there's nothing else, I think I've said enough. How many minutes have we gone about?
107.
107?
1 hour and 7.
All right. I think that's long enough. I've said my piece. Like I said, it wasn't structured. I just ran off at the mouth a little bit this time. I want to say I'm not against the police. I'm not against, I don't agree with everything the sovereign citizens do, but I'm not particularly against you. I think you're trying to save the country in your own way, and I applaud you for it. I think the police are trying to keep things from getting too bad, and I understand that. I used to be one of you, some of the finest people I ever knew were police officers. Lawyers, most of them, they're trying to keep their finger in the dam before the whole dam breaks, and try to keep things working right, and hold on to some semblance of justice and righteousness and fairness. I don't say that I'm particularly against them. No, I'm not. I think we got to all work together if we're going to save freedom, rights, and liberty, and let America remain what it's supposed to be. So this is Pastor Mike in Southern Oregon saying thank you for listening. Yeah.
Do you intend in the future to do more detailed videos about what might appropriately be done by some of these people that have what you would say are legitimate grievances? Legitimate grievance?
I might. As you know, I have some pretty big fish to fry as far as issues goes, and that's not at the top of my list. I am saying to them that for now anyway, go to my Facebook sites and read some of the things that I put on there. Some of them are videos that I link, to my Facebook site, which are made by attorneys and different people. Learn what you can. Spend some time. Learn what you can. And you'll start to get a picture of what kind of trouble we're really in. You'll start to get an idea of what it's going to take to learn what you need to learn. So I got to go now. It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to talk to you about these issues. And this is Pastor Mike of Southern Oregon saying, God bless.